If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. What did a crush do that made you instantly lose interest in him, her? Went on a date with a guy to a Chinese restaurant, and as we were leaving he threw trash on the ground when there was a trash can a few feet away. Then we went to his house to watch a movie and he picked his cat up by the scruff of its neck and threw it. Not a set it down to get it off the counter kinda thing, but a legit throw across the room. I left right then and there and told him why. He called me a bitch and a tease, for whatever reason, never gave him the impression I was going to sleep with him that night, and was yelling at me as I was backing my car out of his drive. I got to the end of his road and blocked his number. I had been seeing this girl for 2 months in college and things were going alright. I was helping her move when she decided it was the moment to have a serious talk. She sat me down and in a very serious tone told me she had been doing some digging. She confronted me with the fact that I had dated black women. I kind of thought it was a joke at first. I guess my brain couldn't comprehend that this was still a thing. No, she was dead serious and explained to me that while she had nothing against black people, she didn't believe in mixing races. I was dumbfounded. I got up and walked out. I crushed on a girl for a couple of years and didn't ask her out because life was busy for me, but eventually I was able to ask her out. I took her to the movies to see the most recent Star Wars movie. Before the movie started, she was slamming beers down, which I have no issue with drinking, but she was near sloppy drunk. During the movie, she would talk throughout the entire movie and constantly look at her phone. Funny enough, she would make some rude comments towards other people for talking and I would cringe at the irony. Later that night, we drove to a gas station so she could get cigarettes and she was being completely rude to the cashier because he couldn't understand what she was asking for in her belligerent state. She tried to convince me to stay the night with her, but any attraction I had for her was completely gone. Went out and got dinner with her. We both had a great time and wanted to go again. She didn't have a day off for a couple weeks, so it was going to be the next Friday she had off. Sounds good. She told her friend, who told me that it was one of the best dates she'd been on and had an awesome time. She canceled. No big deal, had to help her mom or something. More or less ghosted me after I tried to set something up again. Left on read on one occasion. Sent me a shrug when I asked when she had time off next on another. She was wondering why I stopped texting her as much as I used to. If you act disinterested, I'm going to be disinterested. Shit ain't high school. When I was staying in a psychiatric ward several years ago, I became friends with one of the people who was there to treat an addiction. The addicts and the general patients weren't supposed to mix, but I was in a really bad place at the time and became very attached to him, so spent a lot of time with him when the nurses weren't looking. At first he didn't want to tell me what he was in for, and like an idiot I didn't question it. Eventually he told me that he was in for looking at child porn. Yep, that killed my crush pretty quickly. Went on our first date and were sitting outside at a cafe. I was just people watching. She was pointing out what was wrong with everyone that passed by. She said she enjoyed picking out people's flaws. She thought it was a good date. Wanted me to go home with her. I was so disgusted by her personality and chapter that I was just like, nah. She was incredibly hot physically. Was a bikini barista. Couldn't stand to be around her once I saw how she looks at other people. We went out to breakfast, maybe our second or third date, and bumped into his friend who sat with us for a bit while ordering a coffee to go. Just long enough to be super rude to the guy serving us. I just couldn't get over the fact that he had friends like this. I let it fade out. Bumped into him maybe a year later, and he opened with telling me that he'd written off that friend as a total jerk and that he should have stopped giving him the time of day after high school. I literally high-fived him, which he thought was funny, and went out for a few years after that. I'm actually on my way to meet this one, but last 24 hours have made me have second thoughts. I smoke weed and used to deal. She knows this and has been arranging to meet with me for last week. Every time it comes up though, She mentioned smoking and me sorting her out with some. I don't mind her asking me to buy weed as long as she pays me back, but it's like every other message she sends. Don't get me wrong, I'd love a stoner GF, but not if that is her whole personality and all the value she sees in me. Was dating a girl for a short while, randomly on a visit down to my town. There was a big snowstorm. Her car needed some wiper fluid, so we stopped at a gas station. She goes in, but they don't have the anti-freezing stuff, so she comes back out and goes on a tirade about how the brown dude behind the counter should somehow control the stock in the store and that's why they shouldn't let them into the country. Apparently this just happened to be the moment she let her guard down, and over the rest of that time I saw her, and one more time I saw her, to break up she just kinda let the floodgates open and proceeded to road rage non-stop and complain about every living thing. Was kind of nice up till then. Major whiplash. We were drunk at a party and found out she was basically an antagonistic child-free advocate that not only didn't want kids and thought all kids were stupid and irritating by definition, but actually thought all people that had or wanted kids were stupid sheep to biology, and that children should be bred in labs and raised to maturity by specialists solely to repopulate the species. Also expounded that we should euthanize anyone with disabilities to conserve resources for what she considered were productive members of society. So yeah, basically a Thanos Hitler. This came up when I was talking about how cute my new niece was. Not wanting kids is one thing, but I mean holy shit. I had a huge thing for him, but he was never really interested in me. Every time we would have a serious conversation, it was very special to me. One night while we were texting, he was talking about how he had cut his leg, on purpose, in the shower, and that he was bleeding pretty badly. He had attempted suicide before, so I figured he might be doing something stupid again. After a scary conversation, I managed to convince him to get help and fix himself. It was a very bad moment that brought us together. However, it wasn't until years later, still had a minor crush on him, that I learned that night, he had been high on cocaine. That was the tipping point for me. She was a tall redhead with big blue eyes who loved the outdoors, and I was way out of my league. Somehow I talked her into going with me to a concert in the park. One of those summer evenings next to a lake, some middle-aged guys in Hawaiian shirts playing Jimmy Buffett and Eagles songs, and people our parents' age dancing in the light of tiki torches. We copped part of a bottle of rum off of a guy in a ridiculous hat and white shorts and gold chains. We passed it back and forth as I sat leaned up against a tree and she leaned into my shoulder. It was magic. Then on the way home we were driving down one of those winding hilly roads through the woods. As we rounded a corner there was an opossum standing right in the middle of the road. Not just one, though. A big mama with babies stacked on her back. I swerved left. She went left. I swerved right. She went right. Right under the driver's side tire. Holy shit. That was awful. And this girl in the passenger seat just laughing. Not a little nervous laugh that people do when they're uncomfortable. She was sunk down in the passenger seat, contorted with her hands on her stomach, laughing hysterically. I couldn't even look at her after that. A coworker and I were always flirting and even went out on a few dates. It seemed like we were about to start something. Then one day she suddenly went cold. Maybe she was afraid of us actually getting together since we worked in the same company or whatever. After a few attempts of inviting her out to places I knew she would enjoy, started giving up on her. As soon as I pulled back, the more she started to act all flirty and cute towards me again, but whenever I would ask her out she would go cold. So I decided to ignore her advances even if it hurt. Luckily one day after me ignoring her for a week or SK, she came into my office and told me a joke. You know what's the difference between us and a calendar? She asked, trying to keep her laughter. I told I had no clue. Then she finally answered, we don't have dates, and bursted out lauding. That very moment I kinda was instantly over her. First date. We'd chatted online, seemed all good. He knew I was alternative in my styles, etc. He shows up with this godawful necklace. Like it was If he had a bad idea of my style, which is exactly what happened because he obviously Googled alternative necklaces for girls or something. I'm not great at receiving gifts anyway, but he presented it like he was asking to marry me. I politely declined, saying, "Oh, that's nice, but I don't really know you, I can't accept this." Maybe we could have laughed about it with the grandkids years into the future. Nope. He starts crying and asking why I don't like his gift. He picked it out specially, it was a symbol of his love. Oh boy. I noped out of there fast. He called me a whore later and I just shook my head and got on with life. I had a crush on a girl through most of high school but was rarely in a class with her. I think I first saw her in gym as a freshman, then didn't have another class with her until senior year. I actually ended up in a work group with her in senior foods, which I guess we both took as a blow-off class. It was there that I stopped having a crush on her. What did she do? Honestly, nothing. She was nice, and friendly enough. I don't recall her being stupid or boring or anything. She just simply came down off the pedestal I had put her on in my mind all those years, and she became an acquaintance rather than some amazing goddess. Once the mystique was gone, I kinda lost interest. Years back I just met this super cute chick at a party. She was smoking and checking me out and I was checking her out. Cut to later on in the party I hear someone say, "Is she eating dog food?" And turn around to this chick on all fours over dog food bowl eating dog food. She stops eating, looks up at me and goes, "Woof." Yep, that made me lose interest. Funnily enough, the next morning I was tossing a ball back and forth across couches with this chick. So I got to watch her eat dog food and play with a ball with me. I'm a naturally hairy woman. Since I was 13 I could spend an hour per day shaving myself and there would be visible hairs the next day. It's especially bad in my groin and armpit regions. I literally cannot get a clean shave there. I've decided to ignore arm hair and my lil mustache. I pluck my chin and eyebrows, shave my legs relatively often and do the best I can with the aforementioned problem areas. In high school this guy and I took a liking to each other. Everyone thought we were so great together because we were both outspoken and tended to get philosophical quite often. This can be annoying to certain people, so they figured we would go great together and not annoy each other. They were kind of right, I suppose. We did hang out quite a bit, but there was one thing I couldn't get over. Now, this guy, he's pale, blonde and scrawny. Even in his early 20s I don't think he's ever had a single chin hair yet, not to mention general body hair. The hairs he does have are all pale and barely visible too. And at one point he said he thinks people with body hair who don't shave are absolutely disgusting. And any romantic inclinations I had towards him just vanished. I can't live under a razor because of a dude, screw that. Anyway, we're still friends and I hope he figures out that's a completely ridiculous thing to say to a woman.